I wanted to create a follow-up video to the one that I called How Far Can a Camera See? Just to share a couple of important tips in case you're looking to deploy Verkada cameras and use them for advanced analytics. And by advanced analytics, I mean things such as face search, license plate recognition, or occupancy trends. The reason why this is so important is that sometimes the way that we place cameras when it comes to general surveillance might not actually be good enough and give the algorithm the best chance to perform. I'll leave a link to my previous video. I do recommend you check it out because there I describe in great detail about how we quantify quality at distance with what's called pixels per foot, how the further you go from a camera, the less pixels per foot cover you, and at a certain point, you will not be picked up whatsoever. So this is where I referred to our data sheets, where you can take each of our cameras and understand what is that limit where the analytics don't kick in anymore. So with that in mind, let's start with face search. So what face search does is that if it's turned on a camera, every time a face is seen, Verkada will analyze it in a very similar manner to how your phone does if you're doing authentication, or how the airport automatic gates work. The only difference is that we're obviously not matching the face with any external databases or such. We're just looking at parameters such as length, width, distance between the eyes, etc., just to create a composite of a face. Let's almost like a QR code. And every time other faces are seen, we are just comparing them with one another. And if a match is found, then all of them will be amalgamated into what's called a profile. So this is where you can actually turn on features such as person of interest. So next time somebody specific walks in your building, you will get a notification either via email or SMS. When it comes to face search, the angle of the face is critical. As you see here in the right picture, the person doesn't actually look at the camera, so it is very, very hard for the algorithms to understand if they have seen that face before. And this is the main reason that when you're using your phone, you look straight into it. Any deviations will not unlock it. And also in the airport, you are very, very close and looking directly into the camera if you're using an automated gate. I'm not saying that it won't work if the camera is actually slightly at an angle, but the more you deviate in any of the three coordinates, the more likely is that the camera will make mistakes or not pick up the face altogether. So in reality, if you're looking to use face search, you might have, let's say, a door. Don't rely on a fisheye in the middle of the room to look at the face or some camera in the corner. Try to position a camera next to the door frame so anybody who's walking through that door will not only be very close to it, but their face will be as best as possible aligned to the camera itself. For the second tip, we are looking at light and how if it's cast poorly, let's say it comes from behind, you'll get a shadow cast over the person's face. And again, going back to our airport example, when they take a picture, you'll actually see that there is a bright flash that turns on. And the main reason is, again, to make sure that there's no shadows on your face, and thus the algorithm can perform at its best. Now, when it comes to license plate recognition, and you get one of our bullets, the light itself is not a big concern because the bullet goes into night mode, the IR illuminators will bounce off the number plate, and because of the shutter speed being so quick, will manage to grab, in most instances, a very crisp image of the plate itself. But the angle of the camera is important. So as per our documents, we do recommend you stay in within the 30 degrees horizontal or vertical. Best place is to keep it as per this example here, where the camera is facing straight the vehicle that is supposed to pick up. But I can imagine that there are certain scenarios where you cannot place that camera in such a perfect angle. So this is where you'd put it maybe further back to one side, you use optical zoom to bring it closer to the entrance or the exit. But again, make sure that the angle is not too steep, because if it is, number plates will still most likely be picked up, but the numbers or letters might be misinterpreted by the algorithm. Now, back in the days when I joined Verkada, the initial license plate algorithm was not as performant as the one today. So you had to take care, position the camera at only on a certain lane, create an area of interest, make sure that the vehicles don't traverse it more than 20 or 25 miles an hour. But if you're using any new generation bullets, so that's the CB2 series, the algorithm that's built by Verkada engineers on the camera itself using the Umbrella chipsets is very performant. So we can catch vehicles that go up to 70 miles an hour, which most likely is not going to happen. You're positioning this at entry or exit points in your facility where you won't expect such speed, and can cover 3 lanes. So in the past, license plate recognition was much harder to achieve from an install perspective than it is today. Last but not least, we have occupancy trends. So this is where you can draw one or multiple lines in within the frame of the camera, define what's in, what's out, and then command will give you in 15-minute increments a report on, again, how many people come in versus how many come out. And there are actually quite a few ways that can hinder this from happening correctly. In my case, when I deployed this camera that overlooks our entrance in our London office, I drew the line very, very close to the edge here. The reason why I did that is that personally I thought it looks nicer, it makes for a better demo, but when I checked the numbers a few days later, I was surprised to find that although there were a lot of people entering, I didn't really have many, if at all, exiting, which is impossible as this is the only way in and out of the office outside emergency exits. And for us to understand what went wrong and what mistake I did, you have to understand how occupancy trends works. So let's pick up a certain time and you'll see that when a camera spots a person, it will draw a bounding box around them. And when the middle of the bottom crosses the line, the person will be counted depending on their vector of movement, either coming in or going out. So going back to my example, if I draw the line very close to the bottom, hopefully you can see my cursor, the algorithm has enough time to detect people coming in and see them cross this virtual line, but most people that are getting out are recognized as people by the time they actually crossed the line. So rule number 1 when it comes to occupancy trends, make sure that the line is drawn somewhere in the frame and the algorithm has some time to detect that something moving in the frame is a person. Now, the great part about this is that you don't actually need to remember all the things I've said in this video. We do have documentation when it comes to people analytics, license plates, and occupancy trends that I will share with you. So you can check it out, try to understand it, and obviously if you have any questions, you can just drop them in the comments. This is the occupancy trends guides, and as you can see on page number 7, you do have examples of bad installation, and the first example is exactly what I've done wrong. You'll get a lot of people reported to go out because they'll walk in the frame, get detected and cross the line, while most of the people coming in, they'll be detected as a person and their bounding box already crossed the line by that point. Second thing, which is obvious, is that you need to draw the line to encompass all the entry point. So in this case, although most people will enter where the door is open, some might actually push this other door and enter and not be counted. And place the camera at an angle that does not generate occlusions. So occlusion is where a person behind the first one is almost hidden and they're not picked up by the camera. So in this point, for example, if both of them kind of walk at the same time, only one person is counted. Another example here, as you see, is that the line is drawn, but a lot of people congregate in the area. So as they're waiting, they are probably not stationary, they are coming in and out, they're crossing the line multiple times. Thus, instead of getting a low number, you'll get a very high number of people coming in and out. So going back to the London camera, this is actually a Great example, because in that area we don't really have people congregating, stopping and waiting, right? So it is quite clear that there is a traffic flow, and in most cases, unless something wrong happens, like let's say maybe there's a delivery driver who's putting a parcel very, very close to the window, I will not expect anybody be missed or double counted. Last but not least, light is also very important when it comes to occupancy trends, as it is with face search. And you can rectify any issues where you actually have part of the frame being lit up and part in darkness by turning on the wide dynamic range, which will smooth the picture and make sure that the algorithm has the best chance in picking people up. Again, I'll share all these documents so you can have them for further reference. I do recommend you reading them because they do contain some other bits of information. And if you have any questions, do drop me a note.